People feel it would be superstitious to say that demonic spirits are active in the machines they have produced. They are active, nevertheless. The spirits perceived in the phenomena of nature in older times were luciferic by nature. The spirits active in machines in all products of technology are Ahrimanic by nature. Human beings are thus surrounding themselves with an Ahrimanic world that is growing completely independent of them. You will perceive the trend in human evolution. From a luciferic world that still influences their conscious minds and there determines their destinies, human beings are drifting into an Ahrimanic world. And at present, this is happening at quite a fast pace. This Ahrimanic world acts on the human will, and the intellectualism of modern science does not enable people to gain immediate conscious awareness of the will. The great danger is that the Ahrimanic world will take hold of the human will, and human beings will completely lose their bearings among the demonic powers that are present in the products of technology. In Eastern Europe, present-day thinking has led to a desire to militarize the economy and make it into a vast machine. Even human beings are trained to be like machines, with human labor made into something quite separate from the human being. Behind it lies the will to call forth will demons, for it is their sphere into which people are sliding in Eastern Europe. The road from the luciferic to the Ahrimanic sphere, yes, it has to be said that the course of human evolution is going in that direction. Fundamentally speaking, we are right in the middle of leaving the luciferic and sliding into the Ahrimanic sphere. Luciferic elements are, of course, still present in many ways. The Ahrimanic element is taking hold of people. The luciferic is more alive in feelings. The Ahrimanic takes effect through the human intellect and comes to realization as it takes form in the products of technology. And now, the Christ event, which we may expect during the first half of the 20th century, enters into the situation to give human beings their bearings. The nature of this Christ event will be such that more people will be having objective experiences and will then know that the etheric Christ is walking on earth. The Christ who will represent the power that once walked on earth in the physical form of Christ Jesus, but now at the etheric level. If people come to know this Christ power, if they let it enter into them, they will find the right way of dealing with the forces influencing them that come from the Ahrimanic powers, which are now in the ascendant. The great problem of our time is that people slide into the Ahrimanic sphere without having the support of the Christ force. We are speaking of something very concrete and positive when we refer to this event that is entering into human evolution in the 20th century. In my first mystery play, I referred to this as the reappearance of the Christ. I would also say that it is possible to perceive what will happen in human souls when they meet this Christ event in a living way. The other day I was able to indicate in a public lecture that the scientific thinking of the West, which is totally lacking in cohesive vision, reaches its limits when it comes to perceiving the nature of the human being. Science mostly grasps the non-living world. This is categorized and so on. Theories are developed concerning both the non-living and the living world. Darwinism does not go beyond the evolution of animals, however. The human being is then placed at the top of the tree, but this theory really does not include the human being. It is unable to perceive the nature of the human being. The same applies to the comprehension of social concepts. I have shown that people really, quote, run on rails, close quote, when working in this field. Their approach is Ahrimanic, technical, and they do not go beyond this. They have got it all down in their books, where credits and liabilities are recorded. They fail, however, to consider the people involved. Those people want their dignity as human beings to be recognized. But no bridges are built between management and workers. Practical life fails to take account of the nature of the human being. On one side, all this is still more or less theoretical today, though perhaps we should not call it theory, but rather the impotence of theory, of perception. On the other side, we have something that is much to the fore in the social sphere today. The things that are not written down in the books are today making themselves felt in strikes and revolutionary movements. They show themselves in life, and they arise out of the work done in industry, in commerce, and so on, just as much as all kinds of goods result from industrial production. It is merely that this element, which is now causing unrest among the people, had not been included in the textbooks. It is therefore making itself felt in real life. I believe it is true to say that very few people really think about these things, which I also discussed at that recent public lecture. The 19th century has really been clouding the issue where these matters are concerned. During the 18th century, some people, certainly the more radical thinkers, did begin to get an idea as to what was coming. The 19th century brought events which caused grand-scale confusion. Pierre Bayle, readers aside, spelled B-A-Y-L-E, end of readers aside. Pierre Bayle made a very peculiar statement in the 18th century. He was one of the 18th century materialists who were the forerunners of the 19th century materialism. His statement went as follows, quote, "States will know honor and dishonor, ambition, egotism, and so forth. But there cannot be a state in which Christian attitudes play an effective role. It is possible to have a state system in which the old heathen virtues and vices play a role, but there can be no such a thing as a Christian state." Close quote. Those were the words of Pierre Bayle, a radical materialist. And there was more truth to his words than to those of the 19th century idealists. Those idealistic thinkers pretended to themselves that states were Christian. The truth is that they were not. Consider the Christian beliefs in the Middle Ages, for those were foremost in Pierre Bayle's mind. Those beliefs were based on a denial of this earth. It was considered a virtue to rise to a life that was not of this world. The life that developed during the 18th century was largely concerned with earthly matters. Quote, "There can be no such thing as a Christian state," close quote, Pierre Bayle said. And that, in fact, was the truth. People were lying when, in the 19th and early 20th century, they pretended to themselves and others that the modern states which had gradually evolved had the Christ spirit in them. They cannot be Christian. Something else emerged from this, however. Whether they stood in the pulpit or heard the words that were spoken from the pulpit, people felt utterly convinced that they were true Christians. In the same way, people going to their work in government offices, putting on their medals or using the titles conferred on them by the state, imagined themselves to be Christian. They were not, in fact, Christians, for they held those very positions on account of the fact that they were not Christians. People got into the habit of living a lie. They got out of the habit of seeing the truth when it came to major aspects of life. The result was a nebulous